On November 24, 1971, a man by the alias of Dan Cooper boarded a Boeing 727 from the Portland International Airport with a one-way ticket to Seattle, Washington. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, as Cooper was dressed as any other businessman and remained nonchalant during the duration of the flight. On the airplane, Dan Cooper handed a flight attendant by the name of Florence Schaffner a note claiming that he had a bomb and for the flight attendant to sit beside him, where her fears were proven true as Schaffner takes a glimpse of the dynamite stuffed inside of Dan Cooper's suitcase. Cooper sent the flight attendant to inform the cockpit crew of his demands, while another flight attendant by the name of Tina Mucklow stood by Cooper as a mediator. He demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes to be handed to him upon landing, and for the plane to be refueled before departure to Mexico City. Amidst landing in Seattle, the crew stood on board while the passengers, unaware of the hijacking, exited the plane. Cooper was given his demands, although it was not possible to fly straight to Mexico City, so a refueling stop at Reno, Nevada was agreed upon. At a little around after 8 p.m., Dan Cooper made the jump out of Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 and vanished into the storming and dim wilderness of southwest Washington state. Amidst landing in Reno, Nevada, the plane was searched for evidence regarding Cooper, and nothing but 2 parachutes, a couple of cigars, and a clip-on tie were recovered from the crime scene, and a reporter on the case mistakenly named the hijacker D.B. Cooper, the popular worldwide alias we know of him today. Despite the airplane being followed by 2 military fighter jets and an extensive manhunt conducted in the supposed landing area of D.B. Cooper, north of Portland, Oregon, D.B. Cooper was never found, and his identity remains a mystery to this day. Some would argue that D.B. Cooper could not have survived the descent. He would have landed in the mountainous and dense forests of southwest Washington. While skydiving, his visibility was next to nothing in the pitch-black storming skies of the night, and, as noted by meteorologist Sean Potter, the pilots of Flight 305 radioed that the outside air temperature was negative 7 degrees Celsius and 19.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Potter. Survival, especially in the dark wilderness, would be unlikely in below freezing temperatures. So, was that it? D.B. Cooper was never found because he died after the skydive? Possibly, although a new piece of evidence would reignite the possibility of his survival. In 1980, a young boy at Tina Bar dug up $6,000 that was traced to the ransom money collected by D.B. Cooper, meaning that Cooper could still be out there, relaxing with the remainder of his ransom money and free of criminal charges. So, who could have committed the hijack? The Federal Bureau of Investigation launched the extensive and long-lasting Project Norjack to uncover D.B. Cooper through recovered DNA evidence, fingerprints, and matching testimonies. The FBI investigated over 800 suspects, eventually narrowing it down to 24 key suspects of the D.B. Cooper case. 3 individuals were repeatedly mentioned in multiple articles and stood out to me the most in potentially being D.B. Cooper, those being Robert Rackstraw, Kenneth Christensen, and Richard Floyd McCoy. Robert Rackstraw was a former military paratrooper who had an extensive criminal background. He was familiar in making bombs and performed a hijack in the late 1970s where he attempted to fake his death and flee to Iran in the guise of a flight instructor. Coincidentally, as noted by YouTuber Lamino, is that he was discharged from the army 5 months before the hijacking, the search for D.B. Cooper. Additionally, Robert Rackstraw had an uncle named John Cooper, which could be the motive behind the alias of Dan Cooper. However, Robert Rackstraw was no longer suspected as he did not match the DNA evidence and his appearance was too young, him being in his 20s while D.B. Cooper looked to be in his 40s. Second is Kenneth Christensen, who also had a military background and experience in aviation, an aspect the FBI were looking for as skydiving and the conditions faced by D.B. Cooper were very difficult for someone untrained. Christensen looked similar in appearance to that of D.B. Cooper and was also in his 40s. Kenneth Christensen worked for the same hijacked airlines, Northwest Airlines, both before and after the hijack, making it possible for him to have inside intellect that allowed him to perform the hijack. Weirdly, at the time of his death, he admitted to his brother that he had a secret, and his bank accounts contained over $200,000, similar in amount to the ransom money. However, he too was not considered as his money was made through selling land, and his hair was shorter to that of D.B. Cooper. Lastly, and what the FBI claims as a favorite suspect among many FBI, is Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. McCoy performed a similar hijack to that of D.B. Cooper in 1972, where he hijacked a Boeing 727 with a bomb, demanding 4 parachutes and $500,000 of ransom money, And, similar to DB Cooper's demands, was also his escape, where he jumped out from the back of the plane and landed in Utah, where he was eventually apprehended after a 2-day search. Additionally, both McCoy and Cooper used aliases during their hijacks, and McCoy never denied being DB Cooper until his death in 1974 during a shootout with the FBI after escaping prison. The FBI, however, no longer suspected Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. as the flight attendants, whose descriptions of DB Cooper matched, said McCoy did not resemble DB Cooper. Also, McCoy was experienced in skydiving, while Cooper was suspected to be an amateur in skydiving. Project Norjack was closed by the FBI in 2016 after a 45-year-long investigation, and the identity of DB Cooper remains unsolved. Many speculations still exist to this day of who DB Cooper could be, and additional evidence emerged in 2023 that makes me believe that Richard Floyd McCoy was the most likely suspect of DB Cooper. In 2023, the children of McCoy revealed a parachute and harness that had previously belonged to their father, and this evidence, according to journalist Ella Morton, could prove revelatory in a case that the FBI officially closed in 2016, Morton, in addition to the children's already existing suspicion of their father. So, why does the identity of DB Cooper matter? I wouldn't say that it was the real name of DB Cooper that mattered. Rather, it was who Cooper was as an individual and the impact that he had left. Cooper has forever changed aviation safety and security amidst his world-famous hijack, where metal detectors and luggage regulations were established to prevent further safety hazards. A mechanism, known as the Cooper vane, was installed on airplanes to prevent the stairs from unfolding during flight, and, as written by journalist Fred Poyner IV, the changes in airport security that soon followed made skyjacking more difficult to pull off, Poyner IV. Many of the precautions we see in today's airport security system are to prevent air crimes such as that performed by DB Cooper. Cooper also quickly became a legend due to the laid-back and professional nature he was depicted during the investigation. He was exaggerated as a charming, polite criminal in the media, and he has been referenced multiple times in modern movies and TV shows. Jonathan Fink, writer and experienced skydiver, mentions that Cooper has evolved in popular culture to epitomize both the entrepreneurial charm of the American rogue outlaw and the self-absorption and folly of hijackers and thieves. Fink. The faceless identity of DB Cooper allowed the media to paint their own image of him. From the Cooper exhibition located in Tacoma entitled as the world's most famous hijacker, the mystery behind DB Cooper and his unsolved identity is undeniably the reason his impact was so large and reached internationally. Yet, it is still terrifying to think that DB Cooper could still be alive to this day, and even you could have casually walked past the world's most famous hijacker.